So, the movie 65, led by Adam Driver, has recently released, and we're gonna break it down and review why or why not you should see this film. Now, to my astonishment, this film actually came out to be a 65% user rating on Rotten Tomatoes, according to this screenshot, which, to be fair, was actually taken closer to the release date. It's now settling down at, like, let's say 63% user rating. Now, seeing this, you might think two things. Maybe it's not so bad, or maybe it's terrible, and people are giving it a little too much credit. I personally lean towards the second statement, and if you do too, you might be subjectively correct, or maybe even objectively. We're going to try and break this film down as objectively as we can. But as we all know, film and art is mostly subjective, or so they say. So let's take a deep dive into the movie 65 with Adam Driver and find out if it's good, bad, or just plain ugly.
Send help.
The plot. So let's talk about the plot, guys. Now, 65, the title itself, is actually a pretty sleek, modern, and subtle hint at the main plot, or the main plot device of this movie. Although it also mirrors the plot and the writing very well in that it is ultra simplified and dumbed down to the lowest common denominator. Oversimplified, even. Now, we'll get to the exact reasoning of the number in the title in just a minute. So the film opens with Adam Driver, and yes, I'm just going to call his character Adam the entire time, because I can't be bothered to remember what the hell he was called. That's how forgettable this character actually was. Although Adam didn't do too bad of a job. We'll talk about that as well. So anyways, the film opens with Adam and his family on a space beach. It is an Earth-like setting, but it's not quite Earth. You can tell by the background, the architecture of the rocks. The rock formations in the background are very alien and unique to this environment. So it's clearly an Earth-type environment. They're humans, or human-style species. They're identical to humans. On an Earth-like, intergalactic, different planet, far from Earth. It's Earth, but it's not Earth, I guess. Almost Earth. That's what we'll call it. So pretty early on in the story, when the wife and Adam and the daughter are on the beach, we find out that the daughter has some sort of condition, a life-threatening condition that will require lots of funding. You gotta pay, to cure this disease, to do the research, to get the medical treatment, whatever it is. Doesn't really matter on the details there too much. We also find out that Adam has been offered a job on an intergalactic space journey through space. Now, again, the details of what he's doing on this expedition are pretty lackluster and not important to the plot in any way, so we'll just kind of breeze over that. Honestly, I forgot. Doesn't really matter, though. So he does end up taking the job, obviously, so he can get onto this journey and we can get the movie, the actual part of the plot we came for, or the action sequences we came for, can go ahead and begin. Obviously, he has to take the job, so he does. He does this knowing that he won't be there for his daughter, and she could likely die while he's away. Foreshadowing. So now Adam has left his other Earth, and he's on his way, on his journey, in a spaceship with other passengers who just happen to be in these cryo sleep chamber things that you can kind of preserve your body through a long space journey. Kind of like that other film called Passengers. Chris Pratt, Jennifer Lawrence.
Well, you're a man of simple tastes.
I'm not a gold-class passenger.
Anyways, I digress. Pretty early on in the journey, or I don't know how far to the journey, they're hit by, it doesn't matter, they're hit by a series of asteroids that crash lands them on Earth. There's our first foreshadowing in terms of the asteroids, and that relates to the title of the plot, which is revealed when they crash. It says 65 million years ago. Humans crash landed on Earth. Humans that aren't from Earth, from the other Earth, crash landed on our Earth. They're not from the future, they're not time travelers. We all thought that could have been the case when we watched the trailer. We're like, is Adam Driver going to be a time traveler coming back to the past? No, they're just other Earth humans landing on our Earth in the year 65 million years ago. 65 million years ago. I don't know the exact year. Jurassic era, right? Now, when the plane crashes, when the ship crashes, we find out that everyone's dead. Everyone's dead, except for one lucky companion, a young girl, a 9-year-old girl, supposedly. She wakes up from her cryo sleep chamber thing. Adam gets her out and brings her back to life, or whatever. Here's where we get our first plot twist, or plot contrivance, whatever you want to call it. It actually works pretty well for the movie. The girl can't speak English, and Adam can, but he can't speak her language, so he has to interpret things through sign languages, pointing and drawing things in the sand, which is actually how we get the full plot breakdown served to us in a sand drawing by Adam to the little girl. He draws a hill and them going up the hill to get to the working part of the spacecraft, basically an escape pod that can take them off the planet. If they get there in time, they overcome the trials of their journey and survive. That's the plot. It's broken down in the first part of the movie when they crash. All they gotta do is get to the spacecraft, survive, and leave the planet. And to be honest, that's all the plot is. There's no extra backstory, extra lore, extra connection tying into the beginning of the movie with his planet. Basically, you could cut off the whole beginning of the movie, have them crash on the planet, and the movie would be just as satisfying, ultimately. But it seems to be a trend these days to put a middle-aged gentleman on a journey with a young companion, a young, inexperienced companion. Shout out to The Mandalorian and The Last of Us. I'm surprised Pedro Pascal wasn't cast in this movie. That would have been an abomination. That would have been way too on the nose. It's honestly a miracle they didn't cast Pedro. Now, the important actual plot point or character moment of this movie is that Adam is essentially adopting this girl as his surrogate daughter during the journey, revealing to the girl that his daughter actually died during the journey. So his mission is pointless. He's not going to save his daughter anymore. Instead, he's going to save this girl instead to emotionally make up for his failings, not being there for his daughter, which wasn't really his fault because the ship crashed and he was on a mission to be able to pay for her treatment. So this contrivance doesn't really make too much sense, although it does give a little bit more emotional weight to the journey. I'll give it that. Now, beyond this, there's really no character growth or character moments. They're basically both pretty brave. They're pretty headstrong. There's no changes or important choices that the characters have to make during the journey. Really, at one point, the girl finds out that her family's dead too. That's basically the emotional crux of the film, is that they're both loners now on this planet and they have to survive together, and that is it. Adam's character has been a sweet father since the beginning. I guess his arc is that he's finally there for his new daughter, but that's a very weak arc to begin with, and quite frankly, not satisfying. These characters are basically wooden planks. Although I would give it to them, the acting and chemistry between Adam and the young girl is actually pretty decent. I think they could have made a good show out of this kind of concept with these two characters, but that's pretty much The Mandalorian and Last of Us in space. So yeah, and the zombies are actually dinosaurs. Speaking of which, let's get to the trials and tribulations of their journey,
Send help.
which feature fighting off the environment, and that includes dinosaurs. You would think that a movie featuring dinosaurs could have the most epic cinematography, iconic shots, and beautiful imagery, but it really lacks in that department. They shy away from showing too many diversified species, and there you see some pterodactyls here and there, you see some small raptors, you see a T-Rex, you see this weird bug thing that flies in the girl's mouth at one point, and Adam has to like take it out. It's very strange, but there's not a lot of shots that you remember as iconic from this film. Jurassic Park did it first and did it better.
There's a dinosaur.
So, I mean, what's the point even? I mean, I guess you could have taken a little bit of inspiration from that movie, but you didn't want to. It was feel on the nose, maybe? Who knows? I'm just trying to make excuses for them. But there was one very cool shot, which was also very cliche, where lightning struck at the perfect time to reveal the T-Rex type animal. And I felt it was cool, but it was cool 30 years ago. And the cinematic timing, coincidental timing of the lightning just felt like, we gotta have a cool lightning shot. And that must be in there. That was like the note from the studio or something. I'm not sure. So on their journey up the mountain, they go through a series of cliche trials, some of which include getting stuck in quicksand, getting stuck in a cave with a pile of rocks blocking the way out, and Adam several times hitting his future tech to make it keep working. Like his light bulb keeps going out and he keeps smacking it, and his gun goes out at the perfect time, but then it starts working again. These contrivances with the tech are so outdated, so overplayed, and you would think that future tech would either work or not work. I don't know why slapping it would make it work. It was kind of funny though. I don't think they meant it to be funny, but it was funny to me. Now there's so many little details I could go over in the plot on the little trials and tribulations they go through on their journey to escape, but none of them really matter, and none of them really stood out to me enough to even remember in the first place. So maybe I'll just leave those out for you to discover if you want to watch the movie after this spoiler review for some reason. So in the end, about halfway through this movie, I realized how simple the movie actually was, and I've touched on this point already, but I'll say it again. The only real function of this plot is that Adam and a girl have to escape a planet. There's no insane backstory, lore, world building, or anything that really blows your mind. It's just a standard bottle episode style plot where they crash land, they got to escape. That's it. It doesn't really open itself up, and it doesn't get too creative. It is really by the numbers. It feels like it could have been a bottle episode of The Mandalorian. Like, Baby Yoda and Din are trapped on a mysterious planet with dinosaurs and they have to escape. We've almost seen that episode verbatim before in multiple different shows. This just feels like one episode of a bigger show, a bigger event, which it's not. There's never going to be a sequel. This movie's not going to make enough money to warrant a sequel, and the plot honestly doesn't give you anything to work with for a sequel. It's very, very surface level. All right, the good, the bad, and the ugly. We're going to conclude this review by talking about which parts are actually good, which parts are just bad, and which parts are plain ugly, and then we'll give our final statements. I might be ending all my reviews like this. I might start this as a series, the good, bad, the ugly. Kind of a cool, catchy name. Pretty cliche, though. Anyways, the good. The best best part about this movie is the dynamic between the two actors, the main leads, Adam Driver and the girl. I'm gonna put her name on screen just to show respect because I couldn't remember her name. There it is. The chemistry was there. There were some cute moments, especially with the fact that she couldn't speak English. That made for some interesting dynamic and struggles that the characters have to overcome with communication. The girl is very sweet, yet aggressive, almost reminded me of a little bit of a softer version of the character Elle from Stranger Things. She gets the job done in the end, but she looks sweet and innocent. At one point, she jumps onto the T-Rex and stabs it in the eye. That's how the film pretty much comes to a conclusion. The girl jumps out of nowhere and stabs a T-Rex in the eye, and then they escape. It's pretty dumb. I'd like to note that the movie was actually pretty well shot. Nothing stood out to me as a garbage visual, or nothing really ruined the flow of the visuals of the movie, but also nothing stood out to be timeless or iconic or groundbreaking. So it was just well shot. You know, they just did their job and nothing more really. Shout out to the CG artists who did work on this. Some of the stuff looked really nice. Again, just wasn't creative enough to really stand out, and with the minimal lackluster plot, none of the events on screen really felt too powerful, so it kind of limited itself in that way. The environment felt pretty real.
The atmosphere is breathable.
I didn't really have any, like I said, CG complaints. That was all par for the course. But it did feel a little bit limited and even claustrophobic at times. It felt like they didn't take use of the expansive atmosphere and environment that is planet Earth in the Jurassic era. I mean, they really were just on a mountain the whole time. They didn't get to go anywhere else. They just went up the mountain. So I guess the plot limited that again. Comes down to the writing. Now, let's go over the bad.
I don't know where we are.
Almost the entire movie coherently is just it's just bad. For a movie centering around surviving a Jurassic time period on planet Earth, I felt there was a lack of reverence and a lack of respect and presence of the various species of dinosaurs that you would see in this setting. It definitely did not have the Jurassic Park effect on me emotionally or cinematically. I mean, I guess Jurassic Park did it first and better. Like I said, what can you do? The soundtrack utterly forgettable, but it didn't take away from the film. I never thought something was out of place at all. I just can't, for the life of me, remember any piece of music in the film at all. They could have got these. They could have got this score from a pre-purchased website, you know, or a pre-selected library of copyright-free tracks and kind of mixed them into the background, and the movie probably would have been just as fine. If that makes any sense. I'm kind of jumbling my words here. We're getting close to the end. Now, the world building and lore surrounding the plot was devoid of any real heart or creativity or imagination. It was not expansive enough to satisfy, I think, the modern audience. Maybe in 1970 or 1980, this film would have sufficed. But I think we're looking for a deeper world and a deeper, intricate working of the plot into the world with world building and lore and creativity. A lot of us were looking forward to maybe a time traveling style, mind-blowing plot twist of a plot story, whatever you want to call it, and that just wasn't there. Now, I'm not the guy to write that and make that happen. I just know when I see it that it wasn't quite at that level that modern audiences expect from a sci-fi story like this. It was underwhelming. Now, you could have left out the world building almost altogether. The only world building they had was that there was another Earth with different humans somewhere in the galaxy or somewhere in the universe, and they crash land on our Earth. That was the only world building. It doesn't really ever tie back into that concept. If you chopped it off and had the movie start when they're crash landing, the movie would have almost been just as unsatisfying. Mid. Now, the ugly. To be honest, there was nothing too offensive about this film. It didn't take many risks, and therefore it didn't have many insane failures. But the main failure was that it didn't take risks, didn't go out of the box, and kept itself in line with what, you know, a generic script would feel like. I mean, it could have been written by an AI. In fact, I think an AI would have written a more intricate, lore-based film and universe than they did here. This movie just kind of exists. I guess it's an easy popcorn flick, as they say. Turn your brain off and forget about it, because you will forget about it when you leave the theater. I'm struggling to remember it as I speak about it, and I've written 3 pages on it. It feels like it could have been a bottle episode in a sci-fi Netflix series that gets canceled after season 2. That's how limited this story actually felt. It felt like a Mandalorian bottle episode, like literally. Put Pedro Pascal in there and change the girl to Baby Yoda, and we got an episode. Holy shit. That's really all I have to say, guys, about the movie 65. This is one of my first reviews on this channel, if not the first one, so they will get better. I'm gonna get better at writing these and editing them and bringing you my thoughts. But while I did leave out a lot of minor details, I think I covered most of the basic successes and failures this movie had to offer. As always, hit that like and subscribe button. Leave your comment. I want to read your guys' thoughts on the movie or your thoughts on my thoughts. And as always, have a nice day. See you in the next video.